Blaming instinct is our tendency to assign blame or responsibility to others when something goes wrong. It is an inherent instinct or reflex to hold others accountable rather than taking personal responsibility for our own actions. Our brains prioritize survival and protection against potential threats. This includes identifying agents responsible for undesirable outcome or threats, leading to an instinctive tendency to assign blame. When something goes wrong, our brains automatically look for an agent to blame. On the other hand, attributing praise for positive outcomes does not serve an immediate survival need. Therefore, our brains are not as inclined to immediately identify the agents responsible for positive outcomes. We do acknowledge and appreciate positive outcomes, but that response is not automatic or intense as our instinct to assign blame. To show appreciation to our team members, we have to go against our instinct and make conscious effort to work on it. Moreover, our brains also has an innate self-serving bias, which leads us to view our own behaviors more favorably than those of others. This means that we tend to attribute our own wrongdoings to external circumstances or simple mistakes, giving ourselves a pass. For example, if we miss a deadline, we might think, I was given too much workload, or the instructions were not clear. However, when others demonstrate the same negative behavior, we are more likely to attribute it to their character flaws or poor intentions. In the same scenario, if a colleague misses a deadline, we may think they're always slacking off, or they're just irresponsible. Blame seems to be an ever-available resource when things go wrong. It can be exhausting trying to solve problems in a blame-heavy environment. Those who take responsibility for their actions and learn from their mistakes are appreciated and respected. For example, salespeople from some for-profit educational service providers talk up their service as a magic wand that will solve every problem. When a newly purchased program fails to deliver the expected outcomes, leaders instinctively place blame on teachers and staff for not implementing it with its intended principles or guidelines. However, an alternative perspective could be that the leader's blaming instinct overlooks a crucial factor, the possibility that the program itself does not have merits or effectiveness it claims to be. It raises the question of whether the program, despite being marketed as a magical solution, delivers the promised benefits. Instead of critically examining the program's design, efficacy, or suitability, the leader defaults to blaming those responsible for implementation. Some managers and administrators purposely create a false sense of shared decision-making. They seek input from you, giving you an impression that they value different perspectives and want to make informed decisions. But in reality, they have already made up their minds and are merely going through the motion of seeking input. Your input is disregarded, and they proceed with their predetermined decisions. When their decisions proves to be flawed, they instinctively shift the blame onto you, the one who provided input. They argue that it was your responsibility to highlight the potential risk or negative consequence of the decision. They say, I asked for your advice, and you are to be blamed because you failed to inform me about the possibilities of it going wrong. How do you feel? Angry and frustrated? Despite your efforts to raise concerns and provide warnings about the potential negative outcome, they had failed to genuinely listen and consider your input. Instead, you are used as a scapegoat bearing the brunt of their flawed decision-making process. In some cases, leaders also exploit committees within the organizations as a convenient scapegoat. They establish committees not with a genuine intention of fostering shared decision-making, but rather to exert undue influence and control over how those committees are supposed to make decisions. Their primary motive is to create a shield for themselves in case of something goes wrong. When a decision made by a committee faces pushback or complaints, those leaders readily shift the blame onto the entire committee. They manipulate the committee's actions to suit their own agenda and then use it as a scapegoat, deflecting responsibility from their own role in the decision-making process. By doing so, they avoid being held accountable for their decisions and actions, while placing the burden on the committee members who are acting under their influence. This tactic undermines the purpose of committees and distorts the notion of shared decision-making. Instead of fostering collaboration and collective responsibility, it perpetuates a culture of blame shifting and erodes trust within the organization. The committee members find themselves unfairly targeted and burdened with accountability for decisions that were ultimately shaped and influenced by the leaders themselves. High-power people often get away with shifting the blame to those lower in the hierarchy, especially during public scandals. During interviews with reporters, high-power people often make promises to the public, declaring, "We'll get to the bottom of it." In many scandals, the majority of the blame falls upon scapegoats who are at the lower rungs of organizational hierarchy. However, considering the significant influence high-power people have within organizations, it's only fitting to scrutinize those at the top when a scandal occurs. They hold outsized authority and decision-making power, making their involvement in the scandal more relevant. Instead of focusing solely on low-level employees as convenient scapegoats, it's crucial to investigate the role and actions of high-power people. They readily claim credit when things go well, but they attempt to evade responsibility and shift the blame when things go awry. For organizational culture of innovation to thrive, it's crucial to resist the instinct to blame. Innovation is associated with failure as new ideas are tested. The key is to develop a culture where failure is accepted as a part of the learning curve. The question is how to create an innovative environment without compromising on accountability. The blaming instinct can be amplified in stressful situations or environment, like a high-pressure workplace where blame might be more frequently assigned. The blaming instinct, if unchecked, can lead to fear, mistrust, and a toxic work environment. A toxic workplace is characterized by a culture of blame and victim playing. People tend to craft narratives that portray themselves as either heroes or victims, always shifting blame onto others. This toxic dynamic often involves manipulating tactics such as gaslighting, which distorts reality and make victims question their own sanity. The term gaslighting originates from the 1938 play titled Gaslight, written by Patrick Hamilton. In the play, a manipulative husband who attempts to drive his wife to madness by intentionally manipulating her perception of reality. One of his tactics is dimming the gas lights in their home and then denying any change occurred when his wife notices. By repeatedly undermining her observations and making her doubt her own sanity, the husband seeks to maintain control and power over her. The term gaslighting has since become a psychological term to describe similar manipulative behaviors seen in interpersonal relationships, workplaces, and other contexts. It refers to the act of distorting someone's perception of reality to gain control, power, or advantage over them. In the workplace, gaslighting is often used as a power play. frequently used by people with narcissistic or psychopathic tendencies, including bosses, colleagues, or even clients. The blaming instinct plays a significant role in this manipulative process. Gaslighters frequently avoid taking responsibility for their mistakes or flaws by shifting the blame onto the victim. If a gaslighting boss fails to deliver a project on time, she may distort the facts to make it seem as though her subordinates are at fault, even when this is not the case. She may say things like, "You didn't understand my instructions. You didn't provide me with enough information," in an attempt to shift the blame. Moreover, the gaslighter also twists the information to make you, the victim, feel responsible for the gaslighter's misbehavior. For example, if you confront a gaslighter about unprofessional behavior, the gaslighter may reply, "I would not acted that way if you hadn't provoked me, so it's your problem." You are influenced by the gaslighter and may start blaming yourself for the problems, even when you are not at fault. If you don't have other information sources, you start accepting the gaslighter's distorted reality as your own, doubting your own judgment and perceptions, which further empowers the gaslighter. To counteract gaslighting, it's important to take proactive steps and confront the manipulator's actions. Gaslighting relies on secrecy and manipulation, so shedding light on the unethical behavior is an effective strategy. Documenting incidents and keeping a record of interactions can provide evidence that exposes the gaslighter's tactics and helps validate your experiences. Bringing the manipulator's actions to light is essential in curbing their influence. You can share your experiences with trusted people, such as friends, family, or colleagues, who can provide support and offer an objective perspective. Gathering information from multiple sources can further strengthen your position because it reinforces the validity of your concerns and acts as a reality check against the gaslighter's distortions. Confronting the gaslighter directly can also be empowering. By calmly and assertively addressing their manipulative behavior, you demonstrate strength and challenge their control. This approach can cause the gaslighter to back down because their tactics rely on exploiting power imbalance and psychological control. It is important to prioritize your safety and well-being when confronting a gaslighter. Seeking support from professionals or support networks can be beneficial in navigating those challenging situations, particularly when your supervisor is a gaslighter. Start observing your decision-making process and those of others around you. See if you can spot instances of blame instinct and gaslighting in the workplace. Please feel free to share your comments below.